Welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token Podcast, episode 25. 1/4 of a something, that if it's 100.
Quarter of a century.
Aye, quarter of a century, if that's, well,
So, I think
if it did this one a year.
Yeah.
Which people might prefer, I don't know.
I think I might prefer it.
Maybe a little less hassle on us. Wouldn't have to play so many bloody games.
Bloody games. I hate games, Euan. I don't know why we're doing this.
No, it's a waste of time.
How are you?
Oh yeah, well, I'm enjoying my. I've had a week of playing quite a few games actually. You've just like rammed a load of them onto my computer there, so
Yeah, I did actually. Where we are without Pawel, we should say.
Yeah.
So I am Chris, you are Euan.
Of course.
And Pawel is notable by his absence. What's happened to him? Something about his teeth. Did he have his teeth kicked out or something? Like
I think he paid someone to do it.
He paid someone to kick his teeth out. Aye, something like that.
Along those lines.
He's currently curled up in a ball in his house.
Has it just made him feel really bad?
Apparently it has. Aye,
Okay.
I mean he's had it done to him before. Somebody's kicked his teeth out before.
Aye. Well, we've all had
It's just
it
that
done.
kind of guy. Yeah. But apparently he just does not react well to it. So he's crying in the middle of his living room. I think.
Alright,
So.
hopefully he's drinking lots of Coke Zero.
Yeah, he does enjoy a Coke Zero. Does Pawel?
Enjoys leaving half drunk bottles around the place.
I think this is him like rebelling against his communist era.
What, just getting
drinking
as much
lots
of
of
the Coke down
Coca-Cola.
as you possibly can. Hopefully they're draining water from like a Polish village somewhere.
Okay, well, that's enough about Pawel.
He takes up far too much time.
He does. He takes up so much time on this podcast. This is probably going to be a much shorter episode now.
Oh yeah, we can just get down to it.
He's not going to be telling us his stories and boring us to tears.
Talking about the real-time strategies that he enjoys playing, the really obscure ones.
Yeah, in his role-playing games.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Pawel. We love you, really. Right, Euan, let's kick off with some board games this time.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the board game on everybody's lips, which just came out. It came out officially just a few days ago, last week or something like that.
It's big news, I guess.
And Pawel bought it.
Yep.
And he brought it round, and we played it.
Yeah.
And now he's not here
He's
to
not
talk
here
about it.
Yep. We might actually have to do a recap with him when he's finally up and about and he's got his teeth have grown back.
Yeah, we'll let him have his say.
Yeah.
Maybe add it on at the end of an episode and we'll cut him off halfway
We
through.
could just keep tacking the words onto the end of each episode. Just split his personal review.
That's a good idea. And then you
Over
have
the
to
course-
listen to
the
all
rest
the
of the run.
episodes to get his review of Scythe.
Like those like spines on a collection of books that sort of add up to, he will be the spine of our podcast.
Oh, that's a terrifying thought. Right. Yeah, so we're talking about Scythe.
Yeah.
Which is by a man who... We recently reviewed another one of his games.
Yes,
One of
he's
his
the
first
maker
games.
of Viticulture, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked with Lance about this.
Yep, this is Jamie Stegmaier.
Good old Jamie Stegmaier.
Jamie Stegmaier.
He makes some good games, I'll give you that. I'm impressed so far.
Yeah.
His glittering career in board gaming.
Well, we've played those two games. We played Viticulture and Scythe, and they've been quite impressive. So, yeah. Watch this, man.
Aye. That's unnecessary one to watch. Our 2 cents.
It doesn't sound great, does it?
No.
It's unnecessary to watch this guy.
Most of our sort of branded content isn't really...
It's not
doesn't
a good
inspire a
advert.
lot of confidence.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to Scythe, Euan. Let's tell me about Scythe. You've got the box sitting next to you.
Well,
so you're
I'm
gonna
just
talk about
going to...
this
You can hear it rattling about here. Scythe is a sort of mixture of resource management, area control, and sort of engine building, I think. Pawel certainly brought that up earlier, and I can kind of see where he's going with that.
There's action selection as well. It's got
A lot of your
player
classic Eurogame
asymmetry,
stuff that I
all these
enjoy.
technical terms that people use when they're describing board games now.
Because we're total nerds.
That's it. But it's the theme of this, I think, that's caught everybody.
I think that's, well, steampunk's quite... everybody loved The Wild Wild West.
Indeed.
It's probably one of everybody's favourite films. That didn't really make sense grammatically.
Oh, are you talking about the Will Smith film?
Yeah. It's a classic that will be remembered as, Oscar-worthy. It's the steampunk sort of mixed with kind of First World War sort of factions. You have you got like Soviet Russia.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, they're, what are they called again?
They're steampunk versions. I think they're
I went them. I should probably know
something.
Yeah, the Rus-Viet Empire.
Rus-Viet, I was Saxony.
Yep, you get your Saxony.
And Pawel did not manage to get Polonia.
He was up for that.
Who was Pawel?
I can't remember the name of it.
Country or
Nordic,
something. Nordics or something. Yeah, and there are other factions in it as well. There's who are some of the other? What are the other ones? We've got Polonia.
Yeah, you got Polonia.
And there's another one which is escaping me.
I think that was it. We could. We'll have
let's open up the box. Let's do this. This
is a live research on the podcast here. I'm just going to have a wee look at these lovely wee because these do kind of set up your game actually.
Yeah, that's true.
At the start of the game, you draw. Each player randomly draws a faction board and an action faction and an action. An action board is the other one.
And an action board.
And the action boards they do all differ slightly.
Yep.
And they'll sort of between the two of those things, they'll kind of dictate how you're going to play the game. You've got Republic of Polania with Anna and Wojtek.
Wojtek, So Wojtek is a bear, yeah. He's
Edinburgh
based on an
citizens
actual bear.
Will be well aware of Wojtek.
The story of Wojtek is fascinating.
Oh, absolutely,
it was a bear that some Polish army unit found.
It's kind of a story of the Polish
in the Middle
army.
East or something.
Oh, we found a bear. Enlist it.
And they enlisted it, and it became part of their team, and it carried like artillery shells for them and everything. So... Wojtek makes an appearance in this.
Of course, you've got Zira and Kar of the Crimean Khanate.
Crimea, that's the one.
Crimea. And I think, so you got the Rus-Viet Union. It was the Nordic kingdoms, and you were the Saxony Empire. Basically, all this,
the warfaring bastards.
Germanic folk. You've got lovely wee board with all hexes. It's set up so it's pretty much the same in any game. It's not like a modular thing. You've got a central factory, and then around the edge of the board where the hexes are, you've got a starting area for each faction. Mostly at the start of the game, you're generally blocked off by rivers, so you've got things like basically the way that you kind of upgrade your faction, as it were. You modify your board really. And there's various cubes and pieces sort of littered across the board that sort of fit in there that you kind of move around depending on how you upgrade and if you build buildings. And you've got various resources that you can sort of farm from the various tiles. You've got metal, food, oil,
wood,
yes. And you can also... There's villages where you can get more
mine people.
You can mine for people. You can farm people. So that's the sort of the setup for how you play. You've got the kind of objectives as well at the start of the game.
Yes, you get dealt a couple of objective cards, and some of them are quite weird. I got a couple of ones that I managed to fulfil one of them eventually, but the other one I had, there was no chance of me getting that. Because some of them are quite weird. There's different things in the game as well. You have like military power and you have popularity, and having high popularity multiplies your score at the end of the game. Having military power obviously makes you better at fighting, but you have to spend that power when you do fight, which was my problem. I went spend happy. But
you stayed quite low on the power marker.
Yeah, I did, despite being Saxony. And these things, it's like some of the sort of objective cards you get at the start of the game will say stuff on them like you have to have at least 7 popularity and such amount of power or something like that, and then you can score for that at the end of the game. And there was no chance that I was getting the one that I had, because I had to have no mechs on the board. And I needed mechs to start fights. Being Saxony, you have to pretty much start fights because that's how you get your points. And and I needed to have like a really high popularity and stuff, like, and very low power or something like that. I was just like, this is not for me. Like, this is not a card for Saxony to have.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I could kind of see how you could run into problems in terms of like you. I mean, we won't get too much into that now because you probably have a few things to say about this because you said a few things to me.
Was I a bit sweary, Euan?
No, I wouldn't say you were a bit sweary, but you had some qualms, shall we say?
Yeah.
I mean, basically, I won't go into the actions too much because it's quite visual, and it's one of those things that's kind of like there's lots of little intricacies to it.
I think the main point of that though is that you have to pick a different action every turn.
Essentially, yeah. And you'll have on your boards. They all have 4 actions to start with.
It's the same 4,
and there'll be a mixture of. So there'll be 2 things you can do for each action.
Yeah,
and at the start of the game, generally you're not going to be able to do the second one because it will require spending resources. But you can upgrade these action spaces as you go to sort of improve them so that it costs you less, or you get more bonuses from it, or various things like that. And you know the actions are sort of fairly standard to begin with. You know, you're moving, what do you call it? Gathering resources. I'm not entirely
sure.
Production, that's the one.
Yep.
Word escaped me there for a second. And there's like bolstering your army. Trading's the other one, which I didn't really use a lot.
I don't think I used it. I think we only really used it for the upgrade ability at the bottom.
Yeah, and I didn't use that. In fact, I didn't use that space once in the game.
Yeah, and what was interesting was that the different boards, they have different upgrade things at the bottom of. So like the move action doesn't always have the same action on it for everybody.
Yeah.
So I found that was kind of weird because that sort of added a complete bit of chaos into the game for me because where the board that I had, even if, like, you know, I was Saxony, I should have really been bolstered in my power and stuff like that, but the action at the bottom of it was pretty much useless to me for most of the game, so I was not really doing that, and I was kind of moving my action thing around every turn and just sort of like almost flapping, just not really knowing what was the best thing to do at that moment.
I think I had a slightly different experience of it because I had the ability with the Russians as to you can use the same action over and over again. I mean, I wasn't constantly using that, but it meant I was never pushed. I was always able to do the thing that I needed to do if I wanted to. What I found was kind of at the start of the game I was really clear on what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
and I had, you know, sort of using the mechanics that I had available. I sort of was like, okay, well, these, you know, if I set myself these couple of objectives, after that was when I started to struggle. Because I kind of found there was a lot of options open to me, and I just didn't know what to do. That was, you know, going to get. Because what you start finding in this game as it goes on is the kind of the objective that you're heading towards to kind of end the game is you have these star markers. Everybody's got 6.
Yeah,
and you're placing them on. There's a track at the top of the board, and there's various feats that you can accomplish in the game that you can put your star down if you succeed in one of them. And once any player's got 6 star down, the game just ends immediately.
Yeah.
And then you just go straight into scoring. And that's based on coins, which are you tally up based on certain things. So the star markers or the territories you control or the resources that you control as well.
Yeah. But you get these star markers. I mean, like, putting these star markers out, I think it's probably quite important to say that, like, there's a number of different things that you can do. So it's not like there's 6 things. There's
it's
like
pretty
maybe
varied.
10, 11, 12, something like that.
I mean,
and there's things like, you know, you can put a star marker down if you win a combat. You can also do that if you win a second combat. The Saxony power is that they can keep doing that, which I just could not use, basically, because I screwed myself over in the first fight, having not fully understood what I was doing.
I mean, with that, I guess that special ability, I'm just, now that I'm thinking a bit about it, about how it works, I guess the idea would just be get as much combat done and just end the game.
But I found that to be a bit problematic, because compared to your ability, I thought your ability was way more powerful than mine. Yeah. Like, even though I could just keep putting stars in for winning fights, I had to win the fights first. Mm-hmm. And the sort of layout that I had problems with that, but like bolstering my power and stuff like that. I don't like I said earlier. But other things that you can put your stars down for, you if you got all 4 of your mechs out, now you're putting your mechs out, these are the things that you use for fighting and stuff like that, you move them about the board, but also every mech you put out gives you some sort of bonus. They'll let you maybe transport troops, transport workers around, or they'll give you extra speed. Or
I think they can transport workers around anyway, is it not?
Yeah, but you can like cross rivers and things like that, that's what I meant. What other things are, if you fully upgrade, if you get to the highest point in the popularity track, I think, if you get to the highest point in the power track, and there's also spaces for if you fulfill those objectives that you get at the start of the game. So there's quite a lot of different things there, and you've only got 6 stars to put out, so you can kind of focus on, well, obviously there's 6 things you're going to have to do if you want to be the person that ends the game. Now, I found that the game ended way too early for my liking, but I mean, it ended at the right time for Pawel. Because he beat us quite convincingly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was kind of getting on it, and I spent most of the game thinking I can take him, and I was, kind of like, right, what do I need to do? And that was the choices at the end was where I was really starting to struggle. Where I was kind of like,
same here.
Options are limited. How can I maximise my scoring? And for me, the only thing really that I saw was kind of like just getting all the tracks up, because I had the abilities to do that, to get a lot of extra popularity and stuff, and that got me a few bonus points at, having the highest popularity of all. But
I was in a similar boat, because towards the end of the game there was, I mean, like I say, I had problems with the board that I had. It didn't really suit Saxony. But it was just like anything that I did was going to be so inefficient that it would just take so long for me to actually be able to actually get to a point where I was doing something useful. So I would just be moving this action pawn around every time it's my turn. It goes there, and then it goes there, and then it goes there, then it goes there, then it goes there, then it goes. And I was just moving it back and forward and not getting very far at all, but just slowly plodding along. Where I felt that yourself and Pawel were getting somewhere, whereas I just wasn't. I was just kind of, like I say, just flapping. Yeah,
you did seem to find it. I did seem to notice you kind of going back and forth in that same area and not really getting a lot.
Because it was the only thing I could really do that was actually going to get me anywhere. It was a bit frustrating, but don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the game. Yeah.
I mean, well, that's the thing. I definitely, because there's a lot to it for what's going into the game. Like you mentioned, you've got your mechs. The other thing I haven't actually mentioned is we kind of mentioned them on the player boards, but you've got there's a character for each faction. So I mean, obviously, the Poland, you've got Wojtek as your bear. Usually, there's a character in this animal that they're either riding or a sort of companion. I had the Russians; they had this tiger and everything. But I mean, essentially, they're just for going around and kind of Are they the only ones that can get into encounters?
There are encounter things on the board, and your characters are the only people that can get any encounters. But you can also use your characters in fights. They basically function as mechs, but they also have these encounters. So there's little markers on the board, just little star things. And this was really nice. It's a really nice little bit of flavour.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
It kind of reminded me of Runebound.
Yeah.
No, not Runebound. Sorry, Rune Wars. Because Rune Wars has that big, you've got a massive army, you're all sort of fighting each other, but you've also got a character that runs around doing missions.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what it felt like to me with this, but it was much more streamlined and actually a lot better in Scythe. Because it was a hell of a lot less of a headache.
But it kind of had a good sort of role-playing element to it slightly. I mean, essentially the encounters that you get into, it's quite interesting the way they've done it, where you'll get a picture of some scene or whatever, what's happening in front of you, and 3 potential responses to it.
Yeah.
And they'll kind of, I mean, they'll go along certain lines, there'll be a kind of militaristic approach. You can if it's farmers or something, you can just force them to enlist in your army and things like that. And so you might lose popularity, but you might gain there was a few times I passed up gaining a
mech.
Not a mech, but there's another thing in the game where you have on their sort of action board
the buildings.
Not the buildings. The buildings were useful, but you recruit, the enlist. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's basically an extra bonus space that you can unlock on your board. The difference with it is though that bonus, it's attached to the action that you take, and if the players to the left or right of you take that action, you'll get that bonus.
Yeah.
As well as if you take it, you'll get the bonus. So they're quite powerful, and I passed them up quite early on because I was kind of like,
I did the same.
I want to go for the popularity, and you'd usually get something with that as well. Like some of the options, like were helpful at the start of the game. They kind of got me. Like I started deliberately going for the encounters because I was like, well, I might, out of the 3 options, there's probably something that's going to be useful to me here. I mean, on the very first one, I was a right dick. The option was like there was some farmers with a cow, and you could like help them, whatever like that. I chose the third option, which was to convince them that the patterns on the cow contained coded messages from the enemy, which lost me popularity, but got me loads of like power and combat cards. And I think the reason I probably wasn't challenged too much by Pawel in that game was that I was kind of like keeping pace with him for sort of military and stuff like that, which was, that was my main worry, that it was like somebody was just going to shove me out at some point.
Aye. It's always a bit of a risk. I don't think that the game's really that set up for combat, though.
No.
I mean, the combat is fairly simple in the game, but you have to just basically spend some power and you can play some combat cards which have numbers on them, which just add to that.
There's a few games recently that have kind of used that mechanic for like a more abstracted, broader sort of display of like a conflict, essentially.
Yeah, but it's a lot simpler as well. And
you spend however your power to kind of do it, and it sort of represents you kind of committing your armies to whatever.
But I mean, I want to go back to the cards for a second. Now, one of the things, like, because I think this is why people absolutely love this game, right? Now, the artwork in this game is fantastic.
Box is beautiful.
It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
And the cards in particular, the encounter cards. Now, the encounter cards, they're not like sort of encounter cards that you might get in any other game which has some flavour text on it or anything. No, it's just a picture with 3 choices. So you've basically got to, you can make this thing in your head yourself, because the choices aren't even that descriptive either. It might just be like you say, it does have the pictures of the cows or like some farmers with the cows, but the choices on it were kind of abstract. Like you've got to sort of think in your head, well, how did I get into this situation that I'm being given these choices?
Well, a lot of the time that's it. I'd find myself picking up, and you're naturally drawn to the text, so I'd be reading this going, oh, what's going on here? And then you kind of look at the picture and you try and like formulate an idea, or this is the deal. I mean, I think there was one with like started going on about bears.
Yeah,
it was just like a picture, and it was soldiers and these bears.
I kept finding farmers that had mechs and just taking them off them.
You had like all your mechs.
This is why I was so low down in popularity and like power and stuff like that. Because anytime I got these cards and I was offered a mech, I was just like, yeah, I'll take the mech. But I mean, the game, I feel like, because the game has had so much like buzz surrounding it right now. I feel like a lot of that is just to do with the theme and the artwork, right? And the characters and stuff like that. I mean, the imagination that's gone into this game it's pretty incredible, to be honest. And I feel like that's a lot of the thing. The game itself, I've got some reservations about. I think it's a good game. I think it's probably a great game, actually. I'd love to play it again. As a different faction, actually, because I don't think I enjoyed being Saxony.
I think that's the thing, is to try the different.
And I think it is probably a great game. Is it as good as everybody has just been going? Because basically everybody's just been going fucking mental about it, right? And I just feel like it's not that sort of. I feel like that's just blown up out of proportion, sort of thing. This is just buzz that's just rolled on, sort of thing. Like it's like the ball rolling down the hill.
Was that now? I'm not too up in the history. Is this wasn't a Kickstarter or anything, or was it a Kickstarter?
I think it might have been,
right? Okay,
but I'm not entirely sure.
So you always get that kind of like, and I think if something is as unique as this, it is going to generate that kind. I mean, it's one that's probably, it's good that we've had it now to play, and we're kind of in the midst of it. We can kind of see how it's going to fare when the buzz dies down.
I would love to see where Scythe is in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, because
I would love to just see how big a game it is then, because I've seen this happen before with games. Where there's just been so much buzz and everybody's gone mental for it, and then a couple of years later everybody's like, what game's that? And it's not stood the test of time. I think that this one might, to be honest. I mean, my reservations about it, and this is something that I discussed with you. I mean, one thing is that that random draw at the start of the game,
Yeah.
I did not like the board that I got. I felt like it didn't work with my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I generally quite like games that have sort of random power things that you have got to match up together or something. Find that that's actually can be quite interesting. It can form up some pretty interesting things. It didn't really work for me in this game. You can live with it. You just have to deal with what you've got, sort of thing. You just play the game. Still enjoyed it, but I just felt it was a wee bit frustrating at times. The other thing is that something that I said to you, what was the term I used? Was it forced asymmetry?
That was the exact term you used. I think that's what you were sort of talking about there.
No, but I mean, now I'm talking about the actual faction powers.
Oh, right.
So there are games like one of my favourite games is Cosmic Encounter. All right, now that has asymmetry in it. Okay, but the mechanics of the game itself are kind of the same. All right, for everybody, it's just everybody has some sort of power.
Yeah.
Okay, but because of the nature of that game, it doesn't actually change the way that you're going to play that game as such. It just might make you sort of like...
The objective's the same.
Yeah, the objective's the same. But in this, because there's the different powers in it, I felt as playing as Saxony, I was set up to go to war, and it was almost like the game was telling me, yeah, you're just going to go out and go to war. Alright, now I necessarily didn't want to play the game that way.
Yeah.
I felt like my whole strategy now is just, I have to go and fight people. And then I struggle to get that together because of the board that I got, sort of thing. And I feel like having that forced on me wasn't it wasn't the best thing. I don't know how do you feel about that?
Well, see, I do sort of probably fall on the other side. I mean, this game kind of it really does appeal to me because it's got a lot of Eurogame sort of mechanics to it.
Wood chopping simulator.
Sorry?
Wood chopping simulator.
Essentially, as I've said before. And it sort of combines it with like a larger, sort of struggle. There is a competitiveness there, and there is a real sort of competitiveness.
Oh yeah,
even though the kind of the battle itself, parts itself are kind of abstracted, you're still going at it against each other. I think I would be interested to play a 6-player game. I think maybe that's something we were lacking there.
Possibly, aye. I did actually consider that. I think maybe part of the reason I had trouble with Saxony is just the fact that there wasn't enough people to attack for my liking.
That's the thing. I mean, you didn't necessarily need to build up in a military way to be.
I didn't necessarily know, but I felt like the game was telling me I should.
Right.
If you see what I mean. So, because the only bonus power that Saxony gets is the fact that they can just keep putting stars onto the combat things, whereas nobody else can do that.
Yeah,
which is why I think that your power was much more powerful, because you could just basically keep using the same action. If I had that ability, I would have been miles ahead, but I couldn't do that. So,
well, I mean, it's fair enough. I don't know. I kind of like the different. Do you know the thing I was thinking about today with this is that it's you sort of talking about the sort of forced asymmetry in terms of like just getting a random start up. This game is kind of almost like what I would like to have seen Race for the Galaxy or Roll for the Galaxy extrapolated into. Where you've got a bigger conflict and there's still that kind of engine building thing to it. It's a completely different game, but there is still that feeling to it. And that's kind of why I'm probably drawn to it. But like you say, I think it needs a bit of time to bed in. We need to give it a few goes and try different factions. I might really struggle with it next time, not having that ability. I might have a real difficult time of it. But I think the main point in this game is it forces you to constantly adapt.
Yes.
I think that's maybe where over the run of the game, maybe you just sort of frizzle out a wee bit, and towards the end you're just sort of struggling to. But that's the kind of the tension that they're sort of looking for, I guess, in these sort of games. So. Yeah, I rate it a hit.
You're rating it a hit. Which top of the pops?
Sorry, jukebox.
Okay. Do you want to rate Scythe? Actually, I mean, I know we've only played it once, and we're kind of in the middle of a hype bubble. But go and give it a rating. I want to know how this changes over time.
Well, as you know, our ratings are arbitrary and they're utterly meaningless. So I'm going to give it 5 monuments on my one blasted oil field.
That's excellent. Right, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Right. So that is Scythe.
Yes.
Which is a Jamie Stegmaier game, and who is that produced by, Euan? You've got the box there.
SM.
Oh, is it Stonemaier Games?
Stonemaier Games. Solo mode by Automa Factory.
Yes.
I don't know. Is that something being developed for the game then?
Yes, there is a solo mode in it, which is it's called Automata or something like
Automa.
And it's got some strange rules, but I haven't actually read them myself. I think Pawel has, so he'd probably be able to tell you more about it.
I guess this again, that wasn't something I was aware of, but I quite like that development as well. I would probably give that a go just to.
Yeah, I can. I can see you sitting in your bedroom playing a board game on your own.
Well, it's nice to kind of see, like, you can't always sit down with folk to play a board game. And I remember, like, some of the first couple of times I'd sort of played some kind of like Euro game stuff with you, like Puerto Rico and things like that, and sort of really being enamoured with the way these games played, and kind of like I wanted to play more of myself. And then I think I had Thurn and Taxes, and I'm like, I couldn't sit and play this on my own, but like something in me kind of wants to just get it out and start running through the mechanics.
That is the thing with board games. When I get a new board game, I can't help myself. I have to go and set it up and play through a few rounds. Mainly because I'm reading the rules and I want to see how it works. But there is something good about it. It's the tactile sensation of just moving the bits about on a board that's actually quite pleasing. Now, just one quick thing to say is that they've already announced an expansion for Scythe, which has got 2 new factions in it. It's called Invaders from Afar. This expansion, and the 2 new factions in it are called, I think they're called Tugawa and Albion.
Right.
Okay. Now that means that this is good, Euan. This is good. The Tugawa faction are obviously Japan.
Japan, yes.
But the Albion faction is Scotland.
Albion. Oh, nice. You had that prepared, did you?
I've had that prepared. It didn't start there.
You're well proud.
I was really annoyed with it.
Blame the engineer. Kobe!
Right, enough of that.
Right.
So Scotland's going to be in Scythe.
That's great.
That's excellent. Yeah. It's a little Scottish soldier guy with a boar.
Yeah.
So,
did Pawel not make some comment when we were playing this that they almost deliberately kept England out?
No, that was me. I made that comment.
Right.
I made that comment that I found it quite amusing that they deliberately, like, they put Scandinavia in, but they deliberately left Britain out. And I thought that was just quite funny. But now they've added Scotland, but not England.
Oof.
They're not going to be happy about that.
Yeah. That'll be coming in the 5th edition, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
After much
fan-made.
From the back of embassy fag packets.
Tony the football hooligan.
and his bulldog terrier.
Oh no. Right, let's move swiftly on before we offend
before we do that, I will mention, just obviously because I kind of glossed over a bit there, the action points. We are going to get a video up of our playthrough.
Yes. And
I will sort of maybe put in a bit more in-depth stuff of the action boards there, because it's good to see them, and they look really great, and they move like.
Yeah, we've got some pictures and stuff to add into that.
So if you're interested in seeing a bit more, I imagine either you listen to this and you're well aware of this game and you're all over it, or you've no idea, and in which case you probably want to have a look, because it's I think there's one fun for all the family.
So Euan's now our allocated video editor.
You have my solemn promise it'll be done by the weekend.
Yeah, because I'm pretty shit at it. So. Anyway, let's move on. We're going to quickly talk about another board game.
Right.
And that is Elder Sign by Fantasy Flight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a game which is... it's designed by Richard Launius and Kevin Wilson, who are actually quite well-known designers. And you can tell with this game because it's pretty good.
Yeah.
This is a game set in the Arkham Horror universe, which is itself based on the Cthulhu mythos by H.P. Lovecraft.
Are the designers involved in the other Arkham?
I think. What's
Bruce is back on.
We'll have a quick look. I'm pretty sure they've definitely done a few things for Fantasy Flight. Yes, Richard Launius was involved in Arkham Horror. Mm-hmm. As was Kevin Wilson. So yes,
all right.
They are involved in this Cthulhu mythos.
Yes.
So this is again based in the Lovecraftian universe of the Cthulhu mythos. So this is it's quite a small game.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of bits in it. There's a lot of cards in it, but so it is essentially just a card game. Now the idea in this is that you're in some sort of museum where everything's gone a bit weird. If you're familiar with the Cthulhu whole thing, you know all about Ancient Ones and basically alien monsters and all sorts of weird shit going on. Everybody,
your strange Victorian mind can't comprehend.
Yes, exactly. Everything gets a bit weird.
Aye.
So basically, you're in this museum. Everybody goes an investigator. So you get a little investigator each, and they've all got their own little ability, and they've got health, and they've got sanity. That's obviously quite important because you can go insane in this game.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of locations on these different cards. Now, essentially what you do is you take your investigator when it's your go and you go to one of these locations. Now, you've got tasks on these locations and they're just little symbols, and you've got some dice. So you've got 6 green dice, a yellow die and a red die. Now, you always roll a 6 green dice. When you roll those, you're trying to match up with the symbols, but some of the locations will say things like you have to do them in a certain order, or if you roll too many of this symbol, something bad happens. It's the terror symbol. So you roll your dice. If you can complete one of the tasks, you put the dice on it, and then you roll again, and you keep rolling until you've basically either run out of dice, because every time you fail something, if you can't complete a task, you've got to lose a die, or you complete all the tasks. And then you get some sort of reward for it. Now, the idea is that you want to, out of these rewards, you want to get Elder Signs, and you want to get enough Elder Signs to put the Ancient One back to sleep. Now, the Ancient Ones...
Laughable idea that you'd ever actually kill one of them in these
games. Yeah, true. Now, the Ancient Ones, there's a few different ones. You've got Cthulhu himself. We played against Nyarlathotep, I think it was.
I was enjoying Nyarlathotep.
You've got a few other people. There's one, the Devourer of Worlds and stuff like that.
Yeah, Azathoth,
Cthulhu,
yes. All your there's also like the sort of lesser ones as well.
Yes.
Yig.
Yep.
Lizard men.
Now, there's a clock in this game. So every time you take your turn, you move the clock on 3 hours. Every time it strikes midnight, you draw a card from this deck. Now, some of these locations that are out on the board might have midnight effects on them. And they can be things like draw a monster, or
everybody
add a
loses
doom
sanity
token to the doom track, or everybody loses a stamina and sanity and stuff like that. So you want to get rid of these locations before midnight strikes. Now, if you're adding tokens to the doom track, which sometimes happens at midnight as cards come out or certain things happen, you're going to be filling up the Ancient One's doom track. So you add a token to the doom track. Sometimes monsters will get spawned because of that. Sometimes nothing happens. But if the doom track fills up, the Ancient One awakens and you have to fight him. Now, I think this has only ever happened once in the whole time that we've played this game, that the Ancient One's actually awoken, because generally we've either just failed miserably or we've completed the game quite easily. So there's different rules of fighting the Ancient Ones. I won't go into that because it doesn't actually happen that often. Other things in the game, there are items and stuff. You've got item cards. You can get those as rewards for doing the tasks in different locations. You get common items, unique items, you get spells, and there are allies as well. So you can pick those up as you go along. Sometimes some of these things, like you might get a shotgun, which will add the red die if you want to roll the red die as well when you're doing a particularly hard task. Or you might get, what are some of the other things? You get spells that let you lock dice, spells that let you heal, that kind of thing. So you're all working together, I should have said, to fight against this game. Now, of all the sort of like Cthulhu-esque games that Fantasy Flight have made, I feel that this one is actually one of the most thematic ones they've done. I feel more like this is a proper struggle, and it's got a good pacing to it, if you see what I mean. Like, it's one that I actually really enjoy, and the game is pretty quick. We can play it in half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, this is without a doubt my favourite of any
really
H.P. Lovecraft themed game, mainly because of its brevity. Because most of them do my head in with their length, and they kind of this one. It has that sense of kind of like just clawing in the dark and just a senseless doom. It should be an HP. I think like sometimes stuff like Arkham Horror, I just found almost a wee bit too expansive and kind of not as claustrophobic as it should be.
Arkham Horror, I probably won't ever play again.
Well,
because we've got Eldritch Horror, which is a sort of updated version of it. It's almost like a version 2.0, although they are still sort of kind of running side by side now, I think. I don't think Fantasy Flight have completely given up on it.
Expansions for Arkham Horror?
I don't think they're making them anymore, but I think they still print it.
Okay.
But Eldritch Horror has completely overtaken it for me. I've only played Eldritch Horror a couple of times, and failed miserably, I should add.
I think I've played Eldritch Horror. I definitely enjoyed it more than Arkham. I've never really
it's not as long.
been a big fan of Arkham Horror.
Nah.
I've always found it a bit of a slog.
I liked Arkham Horror, but Arkham Horror came out at a time when thematic games were getting really out of hand in terms of their length and the amount of stuff that was in them. And Arkham Horror really suffered for that. Like, really did. Yeah. I mean, it could take hours to play a game of Arkham Horror. Having said that, we've also completed the game of Arkham Horror in about an hour. We have done it in the past. Yeah. Just by complete luck. Eldritch Horror has kind of streamlined all of that, made it a more sort of manageable sort of system and game. 2 to 3 hours you can play a game of Eldritch Horror in, which is not a long time for board games, especially themey ones. But yeah, you're right about Elder Sign. Elder Sign's brevity is one of its strong points. And
it's a fun wee mechanic, the dice rolling thing. It works really well. It just across the game, and you're like you say, you're always under pressure. Yeah. And that's if like hampers you from going just going automatically for the Elder Signs. We kind of slightly broke the game, but cheated essentially when we played it.
Well, we found out we cheated.
Aye. But it was late on in the game, so it was at that point we were pretty well set. I think we probably would have been all right. But the just like the kind of like going through all the tasks and sort of trying different characters to sort of get their bonuses, like, sort of put them to best. I don't think I used the bonus for my character on that one once. No, because it was change. You've got. Have you mentioned on the dice?
I didn't go into the details of the symbols, but
we've got all the different. I mean, certainly something that comes up as what a power on a lot of the investigators is. They can maybe change a die result to something that they want, or my one particularly was like you get scrolls, which are like some kind of like arcane knowledge, I guess. Yeah. You get terror rolls, which is a little sort of tentacly thing, which can often cause bad stuff if you fail a roll. And you'll get like sort of skull ones as well. They're the kind of harder ones to get, and then you have a sort of the clue, the investigation points. Yeah, so they'll have a little magnifying glass and a number, so you kind of generally have to add up as many of those as you can for if you're required for them. Sort of matching the numbers is a bit of a pain. But yeah, my guy could change the terror results into the scroll side of the dice. So, but I don't think I used that once in the game. At the start, I was like, that could be really useful because those terror results are really annoying. But never came up.
See, I went the character that I've gone the last couple of times I've played this, which I think is Amanda Sharp, who's a student, and she is ridiculously useful, and that's why I use her, because she can basically, generally when you're rolling your dice and you're trying to complete these tasks, if there's 3 tasks listed on a card, most characters in the game can only complete 1 task at a time, so even if you roll the results you need for 2 of those tasks, you can only complete 1 of those tasks and you have to re-roll all the dice. Now Amanda can basically complete as many tasks as she wants in one roll, and it's ridiculously useful because you can go into somewhere and just say, right, I need 6 investigation points, I need 2 skulls, and I need 2 scrolls. I'll roll all the green dice and the yellow and the red dice. I've rolled everything I need. If somebody else had done that, they would only be able to complete 1 of those tasks and have to re-roll the rest of them. I just went, that's that done. That's that whole thing done. And it's really useful, really useful. But there are a lot of characters in it. There are a lot of characters, a lot of different abilities. Yeah. There's another character that I really like. I think it's the Psychic Investigator or something. I think whenever she does the otherworldly adventures, which are there's a different location deck that you can open up, so it's basically a portal into another dimension. Yeah. And you generally get really good rewards for completing those tasks, but they tend to be a lot harder. And I think that she always gets the yellow die or the red die or something when she goes into other worlds. Yeah. And that's really useful as well, because the rewards on those can be really good. But there's also punishments for failure that I never actually said. And that's how you end up getting screwed over, because if you don't manage to complete all the tasks in one location, there's a failure thing, and each location's got a different one, and it can sometimes be you take 2 damage or you lose 2 sanity. Generally that's what it is. Sometimes it advances the clock, sometimes it spawns monsters, sometimes it adds doom tokens to the doom track. So generally not good things. But yeah, Elder Sign. If you like this sort of idea, this sort of Lovecraftian Cthulhu thing, and you just want a game that's quite quick, easy to play, easy to learn, it's just a simple sort of dice roll and matching mechanic, but with a nice bit of flavour to it. I would definitely recommend this game, and it's one that I've had for quite a while now, and we do keep bringing it back out every so often.
Yeah. Well, I think I first played it as you had the app.
That's right, yeah, I had the app, and that was a long time ago. And yeah, I should point that out. There is an app version of this on, I don't know what platforms. I've got it on the iPhone.
It is available on Android.
It's available on Android as well.
Older phone.
Yeah, and the app's really good. It's basically the same game. I think there's a couple of things they've changed in it, but it is basically the same game.
It works brilliantly,
and it's really, really good. But I mean, I'm definitely. It's like I don't see. It's just it's such a solid game that I can see it sticking around in my collection. Even if one of these days I decide to start getting rid of some of these board games, Elder Sign's going to be one of these ones that I'll definitely keep.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's quick and it's also good. So what's the point?
Yeah, and it's like I say, it doesn't take up a lot of space. Essentially the game board is made out of these cards, so you just put down a certain 6 of those and a couple of other pieces, and you're away.
Yeah, and you're off. That's it. It's really good. I would give it 11 Elder Signs because that's how many we needed to win that game.
We got them.
Screw you, whatever your name was.
Nyarlathotep.
But aye, good game. Pick it up. Right, Euan, let's round off this board game section.
Sand off the edges.
How are we getting on in Imperial Assault?
Oh,
Imperial
right.
Assault?
Imperial
Assault.
In Snalt. We've been continuing our campaign. I don't know how much of it we got into last time.
I think we'd pretty much covered a lot of it.
Caught up to it. I mean, so we've only really done one more. It was a pretty hefty mission though. We only really got through the one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still going, and we finally won.
Yeah, you won a mission.
We actually won a mission. Things are progressing. Sniper Goats stopped being quite victimised quite so much because the tentacle Jedi woman's
Jedi has become a massive problem for me.
Serious problem, yeah.
All of a sudden, she has just become ridiculously powerful.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing we're starting to find is that
the tables are turning.
Yeah, but I think that's almost deserved. We've scrapped away for it, so long.
Yeah,
and we've come up. We've come so close so many times that the few rewards that we've managed to get have helped us through. So
yes,
and spending the experience and getting the abilities that sort of. I mean, some of the higher level ones for the characters really do. I mean, Ben's, like you say, is just ridiculous. Basically, allows them to attack
anybody adjacent to him.
So he's been basically standing in the middle of as one action, a separate attack for each adjacent enemy. So I mean, you can just stand there and wipe out an entire group standing around them quite easily. Oh yeah, and also his attack has cleave, which can do damage to adjacent enemies as well if attack's successful. So it's just ridiculous. I'm still a wee bit behind on that. It's like I think I'm kind of at the side now where I'm slightly underpowered, but I'm saving up my experience for some pretty hardcore stuff. So
you're building a mega weapon by the looks of it. The amount of attachments and shit
that
you've got.
I've just been building this. Well, you start off with Sniper Goat. You start off with it because it's thematic. You've got an extended rifle. So the dice you roll for that are the 2 blue dice, which are the 2 with the highest range numbers on them, but they don't they don't do a lot of damage.
No.
I managed to get a lot of upgrades that basically just give me automatic accuracy, extra accuracy. So I've just swapped that out for a much more powerful, just short range blaster, but giving it like a marksman barrel and all this sort of stuff. And I'm getting various things. The only thing that I'm starting to find is that it'll be quite effective. Like I guess the characters start to come into their own. Like him as a sniper, one of his sort of high level abilities is to essentially just execute. In fact, there's 2 separate ones that are really powerful in terms of just like if you target someone for an attack, you're going to get something out of this.
Yeah.
Like there's execute is essentially you get like I think there's some extra bonus to your attack, and if you kill the enemy, you get some. You recover some in your strain, your endurance. Yeah. Which has probably been my main kind of problem there was whatever it's finding the time to rest and get your strain back or spending it at the right time kind of thing. And yeah, like another ability that essentially allows me to take a second shot if I don't kill you. It's things like that. It's but at the start you're sort of really struggling for that.
But I think see, I've now bought one of my 4 experience upgrades, and I'm the Empire.
Yeah.
And this is just going to cause you problems because we're now going to have stormtroopers with elite stormtroopers with cloaking devices who are allowed to roll basically any dice they want when they attack.
Yeah, there's been some contention about the cloaking devices. Although that's something that's one of the things that I've noticed that Sniper Goat can do something about that.
Right. Can you make me re-roll it or something?
No, I can actually. That's what the execute thing does. If I use spend the strength, I can remove any white dice from your defense die pool.
See, before I roll it.
We're
going to have to clarify.
Before you roll. Right. Yeah, let's not get into clarifying rules right here. We don't even have the game to hand.
Right. Anyway, that's an update on where we are.
That's a wee flavour. First played board games.
I think we've only got I think there's only one more story mission before the finale, I think.
Yeah,
and
so I'm not going to have a lot more options. We're probably going to have a lot more options for upgrading. It's just going to be going for it. Really.
I think it's going to be death or glory very soon.
Yeah.
So. But it's been interesting. I've been enjoying it still.
I'm up for actually playing another campaign of it. So yeah, we'll keep you updated.
Cool.
I'll let you know how this one.
I'll let you know when I win.
Yes.
Right, we're going to go and take a break now. That's the end of the tabletop.
Are we actually going to leave?
I really need a cup of tea, man.
All right, fair.
Really need a cup of tea now.
I see that thing like when podcast folks say they're going on a break. It's like you're just sitting there for a second and then pressing space again.
They're all out smoking crack, man. That's what's happening. This is the only crack-free podcast on the internet.
Yeah, we like to keep it clean on our podcast.
Right, we'll be back in a minute. See you soon. And we're back.
Hey.
And I've got my tea.
You happy now?
I'm happy now.
We've actually taken a break. You can be listening to this podcast and the knowledge that in the time you spent listening to a short burst of theme music, we actually took 10 minutes to just fanny about.
Technical term.
Yeah.
Right, so this is video games now, Euan.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you've picked up some package.
I have, yeah. I was just browsing around on Steam and there's a recent package uploaded to Steam which is in conjunction with the War Child charity, who gamers would probably be familiar with as having worked on the downloadable content for
This War of
Mine. Yeah, that was their first sort of partnership with sort of games being developed for Steam, and I think it was like part of the proceeds for the DLC went to the War Child charity. In this case, the entire proceeds from the game are going. So it's like a tenner, $9.99 for the package. All proceeds are going to War Child,
which is a good charity.
Yeah, I do a lot of good work, and it's kind of like it's an interesting little thing because basically I think it's something they've initiated and they've sort of set a challenge. Various developers have sort of come and designed games for this. So what they basically said to me, they made 12 games in 6 days. They had 6 days to make all these games, and it kind of shows with some of them.
I didn't know it was an actual time thing.
Yeah, no, there's a whole video on the Steam store there about it. It's because when you download the package, you get Help the Game as another application that just takes you to that video basically.
Right.
So just be wary of that. That's not an extra game. Yeah. What I'll do is I'll run through them all because I've got all the info here. Just because essentially none of them would merit on their own anywhere near a £10 price tag.
No,
they're all just kind of games and they're all quick games. Some of them they've just basically knocked a theme over just a classic puzzle game sort of thing. Some of them put a little bit more thought into it, and it's quite interesting some of the stuff that's been sort of thrown up. So the first I'm going to go in alphabetical order because I just copied them off the list on my computer.
Go for it.
So 10-Minute Tower, made by Team 17.
Excellent.
Who we'll also be discussing in a moment.
Yes.
And this I would say is probably the best of the lot. It's an interesting wee game for just something that's designed as a quick play sort of puzzle game. It's just a randomly generated sort of dungeon. I guess you could almost say roguelike, because it's just you just play it through and then you start again. So it's always a different experience, and you've got a 10-minute limit basically.
Right.
So you start off in a room. Your sort of top-down view. You've got this wee robot, and you go around. You sort of try and collect coins, and generally sort of like. You can push stuff about. There's like different ways you can interact with like sort of blocks to solve the puzzles. At the start, you might go into another room and you can't do anything with one. But then there's like 2 other sort of robots that you can get, other sort of skins essentially that have different powers that sort of can activate those things. So it's just that's quite simple set of mechanics for dealing with these puzzles, and you sort of it sets you that kind of challenge. Where it's sort of one. A lot of these are kind of have that actually, where you can kind of. It's kind of like going for a high score sort of thing. You get your 10 minutes and see how much you can do in that time. And I thought that was a lot of fun. It looks good. It's got a nice little bit of nice soundtrack to it, nice music to it.
Yep.
Nice wee game.
Cool.
A Verdant Hue by Spilt Milk Studios.
Okay.
Not aware of any other output. It's a farming sim. This one kind of goes on a slightly it's probably the first of them to go on a slightly thematic tangent, where it's you're sort of you're essentially like a war orphan, trying to sort of keep your family home going, and you sort of after the war you start growing plants, and it's very simple graphics, sort of like top down look. It's just the one screen. You just have your field at the side of your house, and you play each day. You go out, you plant your seeds, and it's like quite a nice wee diversion of a game. I was kind of looking for sort of daft farming simulators and things anyway. I mean, it's not particularly a lot of depth to it, but the only thing I would say about that one is there's quite a lot of bugs with it. Right.
I think you can probably expect that.
There's probably going to be
6 days to make a game.
But there was, I mean, that one, like, essentially there came a point when I couldn't really play it because there was a dialogue box appeared on the screen that I couldn't get rid of.
Right.
At all. So that yeah. I'd noticed there was a few reviews. I mean, obviously, like, people have sort of, I think, not been too harsh on these games on Steam. I mean, you'll get the odd idiot who just your classic kind of like whiny,
internet arsehole.
Yeah, but
keyboard warrior.
Like you say, these sort of things will happen with some of these games, and I think it's one where they've maybe tried to put a bit more depth into it than something that's just an immediate playable sort of puzzle game. So you might run into problems with that. The next one's Anthelion, which is made by Rovio, who I think I made Angry Birds.
All right.
And I quite like this one. I don't know. I was actually. I might make a wee video of this. There's certainly a sound clip anyway that is the experience of playing this game for the first time. It's sort of an arcade game, and you essentially have like a sort of like I guess it's meant to be like a sun in the middle. I think it's based on the idea of gravity. So like there's a sun in the middle, and you start at a position, and everything's sort of spinning round it, but you're drawn closer into its gravity. So you're constantly having to move away from that. So you can kind of like bank away from it, which moves you away from it and sort of stops you crashing into the sun. Right. Or you can speed up, which basically holds your orbit of it, and you're moving fast enough not to be sucked into it. And then like sort of things you can sort of like collectibles will appear going round it, so you want to try and grab them, and then there's things you want to avoid that will kill you. But you'll pretty much die instantly every time you play this. Because they've set up, it's got a nice wee menu system and good music on this one as well, nice visuals, and you just press play. I didn't even bother to look at the controls the first time. I just went, right, let's have a go at this. Went in, and you start. The music is already playing, so it sort of cues again, and then you see, smash. And I'm like, what? Smash. Just the same thing over and over again until I was like, oh, I see what's going on here, and then I still kept dying. But yeah, a lot of fun. I think I spent a good like half hour just like tanning about on this thing. It's
cool.
Yeah, probably one of the better ones. Blockade. Made most of these, I should say, are published by Sega. I stopped kind of writing that down because it was just like became
so most superfluous
information. Yeah, but this one is also made by Sega, some division of Sega Studios, and it's sort of a puzzle game. You're moving various characters, these little sort of figures that appear at the side of a grid of various blocks, and there'll be a line that shows the path they're going to take across that, and you have to basically it's like a turn-based thing, so you'll select a block that you're going to push down to clear out the way for them, and then they'll move they'll move one space.
Right.
So start off with one, and then it gets harder because more and more figures start sort of having a path through that you've got to try and clear, and the blocks will start coming up once other ones start moving. So you kind of got to try and plan which ones you're going to put down. So it's a daft wee puzzle game. I think it's definitely like, I've seen something like it before, but I can't place it what it is. After that, we've on to Captain Kirv's Intergalactic Space Adventure.
What a title!
Great title. Utterly bizarre game. It's like one of your endless runner sort of games,
right?
Where you're just avoiding objects, and it's almost like child's drawings essentially. But like the environment constantly changes. Like at one point, it basically starts off you're driving around a road, and then suddenly you're like a submarine underwater. You're doing the same thing, but it just constantly changes and just throws you off. And there's like little mini games that just randomly appear. It just keeps on going basically. Quite fun, but just quite disorientating as well. And then we've got Emily Displaced, which is basically a visual novel. A choose-your-own adventure thing. And this is, again, going back to the more thematic
With
stuff.
With a title like that, what else could it be?
Of course it is. It's what you would expect. It's good enough, and it kind of like it's set in your Emily character is sort of set in some country where some civil uprisings happening.
Right.
So it's kind of tying into all the sort of theme of it and everything, and it does kind of because it sort of starts you off in the park with your parents, and it's just like do this and that, and they make it explicit at the start of the game. It's like you don't really affect much in this, but certain choices might affect the way things will go.
Right.
So you're being told by your parents, "Oh, do you want to play with this?" Yes, or whatever like that. Just sort of doing the perfunctory things, and then so it just starts getting this menacing music comes in, and it's like your parents are like, sort of, "Why is that?" And you're like, "Why is that man? What's that man doing over there?" And your parents are like, "We need to go now." And there's like a real sense of kind of menace. But again, it's not really a game. It's just a sort of.
Is this like combining the innocence of childhood with what it's like to actually be in a war zone?
To experience war as a civilian, essentially. But I just said, multi-path kind of novel thing. Why is my phone doing that? I switched it off specifically.
So unprofessional.
Moving on, Malkia.
Malkia?
Made by Sports Interactive.
Oh, cool.
Well, I should say Emily Displaced was by Bossa Studios. Shouldn't leave them out.
Sports Interactive, I believe they're of Football Manager or Champ Manager fame.
Ah, interesting. It's a real-time strategy game set in like an African village, and you play Malkia, who is running the village shop, trying to send your kid to school, and send people off from the village to get errands to supply your shop and things like that. It's really difficult. I guess it's deliberately designed to be that way. It kind of, because there's another one that's kind of slightly cloyingly thematic, and it doesn't look that great. This game, it kind of feels, I don't know if you've ever encountered like sort of Flash games. I don't know if did you ever play on the Viz website? There's a couple of Flash games that
yes.
Viz. It feels like one of them, but like with a serious theme. So I couldn't quite take it serious as a game.
Well.
So yeah, but
I mean,
but
it seems like such a weird direction for Sports Interactive to go.
Oh, totally. When you was like, I said that's an odd one, but
obviously they've risen to the challenge. So
yeah, no, good on them. Good on them. It's a good effort, and I think it's one I'd probably give a go again, just because it was interesting to see how this worked and this real challenge that's posed to you in this real time strategy environment where you're kind of forced to make sort of realistic choices based on that kind of like African village life where you might have to take your kid out of school to help yours, so you might get ill, you might not have that much money, but you need to buy medicine for folk, or maybe you have to hold off buying medicine for them for a bit. So yeah, it forces you to make these quite difficult decisions. There's a couple here I should say I haven't been able to play.
Right.
They wouldn't run on the computer.
Okay, right, aye, that's understandable.
So coming up next is Nevermind by Torn Banner Studios.
Mm-hmm.
I was unable to play that. Unfortunately, it looks like one of the more fun ones as well. It's I've had a look at some of the videos online. You basically it's a thing where you push a ball and you sort of try and roll it down to destroy mines. Sort of a physics rolling thing. Which they're always fun, those games. What was the one that you had? Was it Pain or something like that? Where essentially the whole thing was just to fling a person across a landscape and destroy as much as possible.
That was on, I think that was on PS3.
Yeah, maybe not the same thing, but like same kind of, I think, physics kind of setup. So that looked quite fun. I'm a wee bit annoyed I couldn't play that. Next we have Octamari Rescue by Sumo Digital. Looks had a nice wee sort of daft theme to it, but it's essentially just a colour matching game.
Right.
It's fine, but it works perfectly fine. Not much to say about that. And the final one I was able to play is Savannah by Modern Dream Limited, which again is going back to the sort of African village thing, and it's a sort of point and click adventure, which kind of goes through some of the same themes as Malkia. And the final one I was unable to play, and it actually again looks really fun. It's a local multiplayer game called Splash Bash. Again by Rovio. But yeah, I've had a look at the picture of that. It seems to just be essentially you're in a bunch of little coloured balls and you blast water to fire each other across the sort of the battle zone and smash each other around the place.
Now that actually does sound quite fun.
Yeah, it looks like it could be an evening's entertainment anyway. So I would recommend giving those the whole package a go and hopefully being able to play those two that I wasn't able to play. And why don't you send in your reviews?
Let's reiterate. So that's an entire package of games.
That's an entire package for $9.99.
$9.99. All proceeds going to Warchild.
Everything. Yeah, they basically all the publishers donated their time and effort to make these games just in 6 gays. I thought we could hold it together for this episode for a serious bit of chat, but yeah, I'd recommend it if you and obviously if you want to.
It's worth it just for supporting
game, just for supporting a good charity and having a bit of diversion in your life for an afternoon. Well worth it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Euan.
No worries.
That was nice and brief for the number of games.
I feel like I was doing a real report.
Yeah, that was it. Right. Well, let's move on then, because we're going to talk about something which is a hell of a lot of fun.
Yes!
It's published by Team 17.
Back to Team 17.
So back to Team 17, who did something for the Help. Is that what they're calling it?
It's Help, the game.
Yeah.
Which slightly confused me. I didn't really know how...
It's published by Team 17, but it's actually by Ghost Town Games.
All right.
I think are the developers. Now, this is a 1 to 4 player game, local co-op multiplayer, and it's Overcooked. Now, I've not had as much fun playing a local multiplayer game for a while, especially since I started taking Rocket League so fucking seriously.
Yeah. I mean,
that's stopped being fun. That's life now, right? Now, Overcooked is just silly. It's really silly. It's got a silly story, but it's a cooking game.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're all chefs in a kitchen. Now, I saw this a couple of months ago. As soon as I saw the videos of this game, the previews of this game, I just went, I'm getting that. That looks like a ridiculous amount of fun.
The appeal is instant, really.
Yeah.
This game.
And me and you sat and played this.
Yeah.
Now, we played through the first world, I think you might want to call it.
I think we got onto the second one, but we've got a video.
Yeah, we filmed ourselves playing through the first world, and I swore a lot.
you were very angry. You were Gordon Ramsay-esque.
I was taking this quite seriously.
We talked about Gordon Ramsay a lot in that video as well.
It's so silly but so fun, and it's got this sort of like really cartoony graphics. You're just this little guy, and you can change who you are. You can unlock different skins as you go through. I've started playing as a cat. You're now
a raccoon in a wheelchair.
So repping the raccoons. You don't often see a raccoon in a video game.
No. or you might find out that it's a raccoon later. Yeah. But it's something that didn't look like a raccoon to you. And when you got something in mind. Saw it. There's definitely stuff like that. Generally of Japanese origin.
So Overcooked, there's there's a stupid story. You can play a campaign mode.
Yeah.
And there's a stupid story. Some spaghetti monster turns up in the future or something, and you've got to try and cook for it. But you're so underprepared for cooking for this monster.
You just try and make a bunch of salads.
Yeah. So it's wanting all of the salads. And what you're doing is that there's ingredient boxes that have, it might have lettuce in it or tomato. It might have burgers in it. What else are there? There's buns as well, or onions or whatever, mushrooms, all these different things.
Yeah.
And essentially you're grabbing one thing at a time out of these boxes, and then you might have to take it to a chopping board and chop it up, and then you can put it into a pot and you can cook it up, and there's orders on the top of the screen, so you know exactly what you're making. But you've got to work together to do this because you're up against the clock.
Yeah.
And they deliberately lay out the kitchens in such a manner that it's just not...
Yeah, because I think...
It's not conducive to good cooking, Euan.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I think going into it, my assumption was, and I say they kind of set you that up with the intro level and then the first couple of levels, that the kitchens are going to be set up so you can kind of divide your tasks in a certain way.
Yeah.
But it never works like that, because they're always going to throw in something like, there's a dish coming, you've got to get that washed, somebody's got to go and deal with that. So you always kind of slightly get thrown off your rhythm.
You start to get into a rhythm, and then you have to break it because you have to go and start washing the dishes or something like that. And it's and it's just really silly, but it's really fast paced. You're constantly getting in each other's way. It's like, you're shouting at each other. It's like, we need a burger. We need that. Why is that not in the frying pan?
Yeah, chef.
Yeah, and you're just like. Sitting there wondering what I'm sitting there wondering what the hell you're doing. You're sitting there wondering what the hell I'm doing, but we're both doing something that's probably quite important.
Or we're just somehow managing to miss picking up the thing we meant to pick up, and picking up something and then just filling the place with tomatoes that we don't need.
There's chopped tomatoes lying everywhere, but there's no tomato orders in. It's just like, what the hell are we doing? You're accidentally throwing things in the bin. I've done that a couple of times.
I mean, I don't know, I'll be interested to see the increase in difficulty with it, what they'll introduce, because so far we've done, the intro thing was just salad, so it was just 2 ingredients, your lettuce, your tomatoes, chopping them, putting them on a plate, on you go.
Yeah.
And then you started getting soups, where you were sort of chopping, so you had to get the veg, chop the veg, get it in the pot, maybe 3 chopped veg in a pot, boil that, put it on a plate, serve it.
Yeah.
So there was more steps to that too, and then you'd have things where there'll be 3 different types of soups, maybe, or 2 or 3 different types of soups that they want. So that gets a wee more complicated. And then they introduced the burgers, which made things a bit more complicated. There was more to put together, and you had to prepare. You had to chop up. Well, you had to sort of tenderise the meat, cook it, then get it on a bun. Chop up your salad and everything like that.
But so and not all the burgers were identical was the other problem. Because the soups are all identical. They all need 3 things. Yeah. But the burgers, it's like some of them just want a straight burger, some of them want lettuce, some of them want lettuce and tomato. So you've got to keep your eye on the orders, but the orders also, they come in at in a certain order, but the time that you've got to do them is different for everyone.
Yeah, the priorities.
So you've got to keep your eye on which one you need to do next, and we were just not doing that.
I think we
were just just do the one in the top left.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think any time I was thinking to look at it, I was just always looking at the big one in the top left, and it wasn't always the one we were. And we were losing a lot of orders without really noticing.
Yep, you lose orders, you lose points, and then you get rated. You get up to 3 stars at the end of every level. For every order you put out, you get a certain number of points. For every order you fail, you'll lose points. So we were basically averaging 2 stars for most levels, because
we've certainly struggled to get a 3. We've gotten close, but not quite managed it.
But I mean, I really want to play this in 4-player mode.
Right? Oh yeah,
to the point where because I got it on Steam, but what I didn't realise is that it's also out on consoles. So last night I bought it on PS4 as well. Right. So I've now got 2 copies of the game within days. Because
they'll be doing well with that.
Yeah, this is going to be a hell of a lot of fun on consoles, just to get 3 of your mates round, sit down, all 4 of you just sit and cook these chaotic orders in the ridiculously laid out kitchen. It's just like this is the couch co-op game of the year. I think it's definitely.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the one thing. I think this will be a big game.
Yeah.
I think there'll be one of those people that's going to sort of catch on. I mean, this is only really sort of out quite recently.
Yeah, it was only out just last week, I think.
Yeah.
It was finally released.
So I think it'll be one to watch, because it's just so much fun. And like you say, if you can get 4 folk around a console playing that and just having mayhem.
And the thing is, you don't actually need 4 controllers because you can share controllers. You can have 2 people on one controller.
Well, yeah, there's only really 2. You just need to move, and then there's 2 buttons.
Yeah, that's
all
really
you require.
But I mean, for a game that's so simple, I almost feel like why hasn't nobody done something like this before? Because it's such a cooking is such a one of the original games that I remember playing. Like I've mentioned it before in the Atari, was Pressure Cooker. I mean, like cooking games have been around since video games have been about, basically. And why nobody's just thought, why do we not just like make a completely mental game in a kitchen with everybody cooking all this stuff up? I mean, it's even VR has latched onto cooking straight away. Like, you know, I've seen people playing stuff on Vive, which is just a cooking game where you're standing in the kitchen trying to put things together. And I'm just like, well, you know, why has nobody done a multiplayer thing like this? Because it works so well, and it's so much fun.
It seems, I mean, I guess after the fact, it sort of seems simple. I can go, oh yeah, they've just sort of taken the elements and broken it down into, right, these are the things you need to do. How do we just challenge people with that? What I'm going to be interested in the later levels is if they start throwing together different types of, because so far we've always been producing one type of thing. There may be variations.
It's either been burgers or soup.
Yeah, if they start mixing these up, or I mean, maybe like we say the multiplayer thing. If there's custom scenarios for multiplayer, you can just stick in 4 players and everything.
I think at the moment it has only the campaign mode and a versus mode.
Right. But the campaign mode's a lot of fun.
And the campaign mode's just a hell of a lot of fun.
And you need to play it because you're going to be lost.
Yeah.
It does sort of guide you through and it helps you become a better chef.
It does. Yeah, chef.
It's the whole point of the game. That's what this onion's telling you to do.
Yes, the Onion King.
Yeah, there's always an Onion King in these things, isn't there?
Well, the story's just silly.
Nah.
I mean, the spaghetti monster, but then you always fail that spaghetti monster mission, the very first one. Then you get, for some reason, you get sent back in time to the early 90s, and then you have to just start working in kitchens from there. But it's just a progression of levels, really. It's like the story's just been tacked on with a hell of a lot of humour thrown into it. So,
although I'm just thinking now, it might be quite humorous to for that starting level, to go onto the Demon Souls entry on Wikipedia, copy the bit about the first boss in Demon Souls that kills you, and then paste that into the bit for this game, and then make so everybody will be trying to beat that level and make the archdemon appear.
I'm just having like images in my head of the Overcooked DLC, Demon Souls DLC,
Demon Souls DLC for Overcooked. Yes.
But yeah, it's a fun game. I mean, if you like just sitting playing stupid games with your mates, you can do this with a few beers or whatever. Oh, like, this game is just brilliant fun. Pick it up. Like, just seriously get it. Right, it'll be any other video games to talk about. I mean, I've just been sitting waiting in anticipation for No Man's Sky, which is coming tomorrow.
And every so often I'm getting a pang of regret about that I don't have a better computer, because
I've got good news for you, Euan. I'm getting on the PS4.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
Aye,
I'll be able to play it.
Aye, you'll be able to play it.
Alright, aye.
When I'm
Will you
not
let
playing
me play it?
Aye.
That's maybe the way I should have phrased that. Aye. Well, it's certainly been at the forefront of gaming this week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's
leading edge.
A hell of a lot of hype.
It's the first time we've
I hope it lives up to that hype, because if it doesn't, if it falls flat, then that's going to be a massive disappointment. So, but I mean, I like to talk about. I'm a cynic. I'm a cynic. Yeah. So,
well, I think what we should be doing is, capitalise on the success of having talked about Scythe and Overcooked in basically the weeks that they've come out. Is to just run it into the ground for the rest of the year and just talk about those games and just try and court those audiences.
Alright, so that's every episode from now on.
We'll just be talking about Scythe and Overcooked.
We should maybe just start I know, like, this is yet another one of our sub-podcasts that we're going to go on about. A Scythe podcast. The podcast that's only about Scythe.
The Scythecast.
The Scythecast, yes.
See, that almost seems like the sort of thing that might actually happen, though. So you got to watch with these ironic concepts.
It might actually be some water to them. Right. Well, we'll just we'll wrap the episode up there because I'm just going to go to sleep and then wait for No Man's Sky to turn up.
Is
it's coming tomorrow, man. It's coming tomorrow.
First thing in the morning, you're going to get straight on it.
I'm not going to work.
All right.
Oh no, I have to go to work. Damn it.
Does the post office listen to this podcast, I wonder?
I will definitely be at work.
Right.
You
certainly sound like a wage that I will definitely be at work.
Right,
I will salute the flag.
Let's wrap up the episode then. So let's. Do you want to do the internet, Euan?
I'll give you all the internets. I can probably remember them off the top of my head. We are firstplayertoken@gmail.com.
Yep. So that's emails. If you want to send us questions, please do.
Yes.
Suggestions, anything at all, please email us.
You can do the same on Facebook. We're pretty active on there, so if you have any queries or want to leave a comment, feel free.
Go for it.
We are just unnecessary first player token. I think facebook.com/
we're easy to find.
You know how to do these things. Twitter, we are first player token 1ST once player token.
Yep.
At once player token, although I guess if you use Twitter you know these things as well. This is how good I am at the social media stuff.
Yep.
We're on SoundCloud, where all of our episodes are.
We're easy to find.
Leave one of those little comments on the bottom where you sort of scroll through people's sounds and you've just got like some guy from Denver going woo. iTunes, still no reviews on there, so looking for some 5 or 1-star reviews, nothing in between.
Yeah, we don't want anything in between.
YouTube, we've got a video coming out. I say hopefully, no. You have my guarantee.
We have 2 videos coming out.
You have my guarantee. 2 videos will be out by this weekend, even if it's by midnight Sunday.
And those are Scythe,
and
Elder Sign.
Over?
Elder Sign. We recorded Elder Sign as well.
Elder Sign. I forgot.
I
forgot. So that's another task I've got to do. And Overcooked, are we going to... Is that...
Overcooked is up on the YouTubes already.
It is up,
so our Overcooked video is there.
Yep, have a look at that.
Straight away.
Yeah, I forgot you'd done that. Chris will hopefully be getting back into some twitching.
Right, I've got an announcement to make about that.
Tell
actually.
us.
So I am giving up on the Uncharted stream right now. It's not because I'm a quitter. It's
technical reasons.
Yeah, it's technical reasons. It's basically because the PlayStation, for some reason, does not let you customise how your connection works.
Yeah.
And it has some preset settings, and because your internet connection isn't great, I have to use the medium settings, which basically turn the video into potato mode. And I had some horrendous issues with it the last time I tried to stream Uncharted. So unfortunately, I am going to have to give that up. I will go back to streaming on PC instead because I can customise that and I can make it look at least decent.
And you can play daft games on Steam.
And I can play a lot of daft games. And I've got some lined up.
Okay, good stuff. Well, hopefully we'll see that soon. Pardon me. I could end the episode there with a burp.
Classic.
Well, if any techie folk are listening and have a fix for Chris's problem, feel free to get in touch with us.
There isn't a fix. It's the limitations of the PlayStation settings, basically. So, and there's no way to change them.
Well, if you've got a box you can just hammer into Chris's PS4 that might break it. And
the other thing I could do is get a video card from my PC and then plug the PlayStation into that, but that's not going to happen because those are expensive and I don't have the money.
Alright.
Right, carry on, Euan.
Well, that's it. We've also, we are part of the Podnose network of wonderful podcasts, www.podnose.com. And check them out. We're on there. I think episode 24 has been slightly delayed, but it will be up there soon. And you can download and listen on the website there and also check out their various other podcasts. And that is it for our internet presence. Is there anything I've missed, Chris?
I don't think so. I think you've got everything there.
Bloody hell!
Sorry, we never actually gave my Twitch thing. My Twitch username. My Twitch username is Unnecessary Chris. If you want to find me on there,
he's also that on Steam.
I'm also that on Steam.
You just want to add him as a friend on Steam.
Oh yeah, thanks, Euan.
Yeah.
I know. Now I'm going to get 0 friend requests.
I'm going to add that to the list. Right.
Okay, well that was a good episode. Hopefully, was a good one. Pawel will have his teeth replaced by next episode, and he will be back.
I felt the efficiency in this episode. There was a certain determination in what we did today.
Not being sidetracked by somebody moaning about RPGs and how they don't live up to standards.
Well, they're high standards, and that's why we have him on.
It is. It is.
You've got to judge things by the best.
I wouldn't change Pawel.
No. don't think you could.
Toothless.
Somebody's changed them. A medical professional has been allowed to change them. Are we going to continue this? Are we going to allow this to happen?
Yes.
All right. I was up for privatising the NHS and pricing Pawel out of healthcare, but if that's...
You are not up for
that's
that.
Going to be... I'm obviously not up for that. I was being facetious.
Right, well, thanks for listening. That has been episode 25 of the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast. Next episode, we will be celebrating our anniversary.
It is, yes. We're going to have a nice big bumper episode for that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. No, we will.
Right.
We will.
Okay. Euan gives you his assurances we will have
I'm giving all sorts of assurances on these. I'm cashing checks that my ass has no capacity to handle.
Right, thanks for listening. See you next time.
Bye.